the ophthalmic manifestations of dyslipidemia. So basically, I was wondering how I should put it across. So I realized that there are certain acquired dyslipidemias where some of the ophthalmic conditions may accelerate more rapidly than in a patient who has normal lipidemia, and or they may be risk factors to certain pathologies in the eye. And some of these are like the age-related macular degeneration, diabetic retinopathy, vascular occlusions in the eye, arcus, xanthelasma, and to some extent the dry eye and glaucoma. And then we, as ophthalmologists, also see certain conditions which are because of inherited lipoproteinemia, such as lipemia retinalis, again a dense arcus, corneal clouding, night blindness, and sometimes xanthomas. So I'll just go through some of these conditions and how the lipid profile may be altering the conditions that we see in these patients. Age-related macular degeneration, as we know, is a condition where there is an accumulation of lipids, inflammatory material, and proteins below the pigment epithelium of the retina. And it's an inflammatory condition, which is where in the dry form you get drusen, what we call as bumps on the below the retinal pigment epithelium, as you can see in the scan just below on the left side. And then there is a wet form of macular degeneration where you get bleeding and scarring of the retina, and there is a total loss of central vision. In these patients, it has been found and associated that raised lipids are known to accelerate the progression of disease, and omega-3 oils and fish oils have been found to be protective. So this is how a patient with a central macular degeneration would be able to see, where there is a central scotoma. And in one of the landmark studies in macular degeneration, which we call as the ARED study, they found that supplementing with omega-3 oils can reduce the progression and development by about 30 to 50% in various stages of these patients. We know that hyperglycemia is a very important risk factor for diabetic patients evolving into diabetic retinopathy. And several studies have also now shown that the second most important factor possibly is dyslipidemia. So studies which involved looking at patients who are treated with various drugs such as statins and fibrates, and others which looked at supplementation of omega-3 fatty acids, showed us that patients with diabetes, especially two factors of diabetic retinopathy, one is the presence of hard exudates, which we know are lipids which have sort of leaked out from the retinal vasculature into the retina, and macular edema, which is an accumulation of fluid in the macula in patients with diabetic retinopathy. So these two important parameters are correlated in patients who are dyslipidemic. Certain biomarkers we know which accelerate the retinopathy or correlate with severity of retinopathy are increased total cholesterol, the LDL levels and the triglyceride levels, and increase in apoprotein B levels, C-reactive protein, and IL-1 beta levels. Those which correlate negatively are the HDL levels, the ApoA1, fibroblast growth factor levels, and PPAR gamma receptor levels. We know that lipid lowering therapy is correlated with a reduced prevalence of diabetic hard exudates and macular edema, with a reduced progression of diabetic retinopathy, and also a faster resolution of some of the diabetic retinopathy parameters when you treat them with these drugs. Fibrates and statins have been found to be effective, and so have glitazone group of drugs been used for patients who have diabetic retinopathy. And we also know that the omega-3 supplementation has been protective in patients who have diabetic retinopathy. In ophthalmology, we also see a lot of patients who have vascular occlusions. These are venous occlusions involving the central retinal vein or the arterial occlusions of the central retinal artery occlusion, and we can also have occlusions in the branch vessels. So patients who have retinal artery occlusions have factors such as vascular inflammation, cholesterol emboli, and enhanced platelet aggregation. And in vein occlusions, we have thrombophilias, venous stasis, and endothelial injury. When you look at hyperlipidemia, about 35% of patients with venous occlusions and more than 80% of patients with arterial occlusions had hyperlipidemia, which is a very strong risk factor for patients with these occlusions. Therefore, patients with these occlusions need lipid control and lipid management, and they also need a more extensive investigation because just like the vascular occlusion in the eye, they could be at high risk for cardiac and stroke and other risk systemically. So therefore, these patients do require a physician evaluation and further workup, not only for the eye, but also for their systemic problems which they may have and the risk to reduce the risk factors of systemic disease. A less or a rarer form of condition is lipemia retinalis, which is a condition where you get extremely high triglyceride levels, which as an ophthalmoscopic feature, you can see that the retinal vessels start looking milky white, and even the retinal color might change a little bit in patients who have extremely high levels. Probably physicians would know better, but familial hyperlipoproteinemias are commonly associated with this condition. But we also have patients who may have secondary high triglyceride levels due to various systemic diseases who might present with lipemia retinalis. This picture is from a case which was published in the American Journal, where the patient had a triglyceride level of 6,080. And you can see that the absolutely milky white retinal vessels and the color of the retina is also looking a little different than what we see the more bright red retinal image. These patients will also have systemic problems like pancreatitis, xanthomas, and hepatosplenomegaly. A very common condition that we all see in all elderly population is corneal arcus. We know that about more than 100% or near 100% of patients will have this when they cross 80 years of age. However, when it does occur at a younger age, it is strongly associated with dyslipidemia. Patients less than 40 years of age with an arcus have a higher risk of coronary artery disease. In general, it's more common in men than in women, and it's rare in premenopausal women. Basically, it's a involvement and deposition of cholesterol esters, phospholipid, and triglyceride. And it's been found that the degree of arcus correlates with the plasma LDL level. A unilateral arcus in a patient is strongly suggestive of a carotid occlusive disease on the unaffected side because it's basically because of vascular leakage. So there is possibly a reduced circulation on the eye where there is no arcus. And in patients who have familial hypercholesterolemia, you can get an arcus as early or even before 10 years of age when they are homozygous, and by their 30s if they are heterozygous. So very early onset of arcus is suggestive of a familial hypercholesterolemia, as we saw in the earlier talk today. Well, we know xanthelasmas are basically flat plaques on the eyelids, which often seem nasally. More than 50% of these patients may have raised serum LDL levels, and they are at a much higher risk of atherosclerosis. Interestingly, those with xanthelasma who are normal lipid profile may also seem to have a higher risk of atherosclerosis independent of the lipid level. So there may be other factors which may be associated, which may cause or contribute to a higher risk of problems. Therefore, all patients who have xanthelasma need to be investigated and treated to reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. There are also now a lot of literature which is coming up on the association of dry eye with dyslipidemia in middle-aged and elderly population. We also know that the meibomian glands in the eyelid, which release lipids into the tear film, tend to get adversely affected in patients who have hyperlipidemia, and we have some literature to support this. Similarly, we have a lot of literature today which is coming up more recently on the association of open angle glaucoma with patients who have dyslipidemia or hyperlipidemia. Just to mention that as of now, as ophthalmologists, we are not really doing lipid profile in dry eye and glaucoma patients, but this is something that probably could be looked into as science evolves. We also see corneal clouding in patients, not very commonly, but rarely, yes. And more often we see patients who have fisheye disease where there is basically a deficiency of the LCAT enzyme. We don't see very often the familial LCAT deficiency, but fisheye disease is something that is rarely seen in ophthalmic clinics. This was one patient who is just 25 years of age, came to me with bilateral cloudy corneas. There is a subtle haze in the corneal stroma due to lipid deposition with a dense arcus. And however, I could not investigate him with any genetic studies, but probably he's one of the patients who has this problem. We also see a condition called Schneider's crystalline dystrophy, where you get a very dense arcus with a crystalline deposition of cholesterol in the central cornea. And these are usually associated sometimes with type 2, 3, and 4 hyperlipoproteinemias. We also, I haven't seen one, but just to complete, we also have a Tangier disease where there is a defective transporter gene and which can present with corneal clouding. Similarly, we have patients with night blindness, and A beta lipoproteinemia could be one of the conditions where you can get night blindness, and at an early age. Of course, it is associated with a lot of other systemic conditions which might help us to make a diagnosis along with the physician. So basically what I would like to stress is that as ophthalmologists, I think it's our responsibility to refer patients who have conditions which may be associated with dyslipidemia or hyperlipidemia, so that we treat not the eye but the patient as a whole, and the patient's other risk factors can be evaluated and treated by the physician. So I would like to thank all of you for patient listening. Thank you.